Popcorn junkies back. Do we like Maddie's dark hair? It's almost in tribute to the film we're reviewing, which is Suspiria. People get very hot under the collar if you say it's a remake or it's a reimagining, a reversioning of the original Suspiria made by Dario Argento, which came out in 1977. Did you have any free will in coming or not?
Yes, I did. I wanted to see it.
You wanted to see it, okay, because a number of people have taken me to task saying it's the most awful thing I could have done. It's a remake of a film that probably, if you watched it now, is probably very dated and probably pretty bad. It stars Dakota Johnson of 50 Shades.
Yeah.
Tilda Swinton, who's a particular favourite of mine.
Chloë
Grace Moretz, which was really odd. She was in it for literally the first scene. Like a sort of furtive, slightly insane student running around a room. Music by Thom Yorke from Radiohead.
The music was good.
Yeah, I thought the first tune I really liked. I mean, tune, that's sort of very sort of conventional way of describing some odd music, really. In terms of a quick summation of the story, it's set in a ballet school in East Berlin.
Yeah.
It's, Cold War, post-World War II. It's set in the 70s. I think we're confident to say that we went in thinking, having just seen Mandy...
Yeah, it's going to make... In comparison to Mandy, it won't be anything, really.
It was going to make Mandy look like an episode of The Simpsons.
No, we thought Mandy was going to make it look like
We thought Mandy was going to make this look like an episode of The Simpsons. We thought it can't get much more ridiculous or in your face or shocking than Mandy. How wrong were we? Now, I thought it had quite a long laboured start, did you?
Yeah, it did actually.
As we established ourselves.
It definitely whacked you in the face when stuff happened.
Yeah, but I mean, we were a good 15 to 20 minutes in before...
But it was very eerie. The whole first... part of the film, you're like...
Chloë Grace Moretz goes to see this really ageing man who's a sort of psychotherapist, a doctor, who, if I'm really honest, I never really understood who the hell he was.
He was just her doctor.
He was just her doctor.
And then she went missing and he wanted to help find her.
That's right. Now, here's the thing. Can someone help me with this? That wasn't a real old man. It was someone in prosthetics, wasn't it?
It looked like he was in prosthetics sometimes. Like when you said, isn't that Tilda Swinton?
I thought it was Tilda Swinton. I thought some major...
But then sometimes did look like a normal man. What does it say if it's a normal guy?
Can you clarify who the hell plays a psychoanalyst? What's going on there? Is this some sort of weird mystery sort of thing going on? Because it's weird. No one's ever heard of the actor before, and then there's lots of swirling rumours that Tilda was in makeup for a long time, and I felt at times it was Tilda. Why would they cast Tilda Swinton in that part as well?
Seems a bit weird.
Okay, I kind of knew what I was going to get slightly. I knew we were going to get a horror story set in a dance school. What did you think as you sat down and it started to develop?
After seeing the trailer, I knew that there were going to be obviously scary bits in it because it's a horror film. So when it wasn't particularly scary, you kind of just left there thinking, so what's going to happen when it does get scary? It's going to happen any minute now, really.
Yeah, were you left thinking, where's the scare going to come from?
Yeah. It's kind of like preparing myself. And I think I'd stopped preparing myself when it actually happened.
Yes.
Because I was so shocked with the first, proper scary scene.
Because at first, I was thinking, when I was about 15 minutes in, I was beginning to think, oh, hang on a minute, this isn't going to be good. This is really taking its time. It's set in a world and a time that's going to not speak to Maddie. I got that terrible thing you get when you go to the cinema with someone you're responsible for. I thought, this ain't going to relate to this at all. I've picked it up. It was a big movie in the 70s, and it's set in Berlin, and it's all going to be very Berlin-y. But was there anything about it that hooked you in at the beginning before the first grotesque scene?
Well, I did feel the beginning was a bit boring.
But we were set up with the intriguing setup of Chloë Grace Moretz going ballistic in this guy's office. So you're sort of thinking, what the hell's wrong with her?
I didn't think she was as crazy as she could have been.
No, I know what you mean. She kind of just got up and sort of picked his books up and wandered around, and then smashed his photo of someone, didn't she? It felt very slow and it felt very sort of odd. But there was one big clue that I quite liked. At first it was annoying me. Did you notice the way in which the camera work was using a lot of agitated kind of zooms in? Yeah. Which is very 70s, very dated. Yeah. People don't really zoom in much now. I mean, and when you film, it's often considered as a camera operator a sort of failure if you need to zoom. What you should do is physically move with the camera or be on the right lens at the beginning. And so that stylistic device, I began to really, my attitude to the film began to get better as I started to think, oh, I like what he's doing here. Because you get little moments where the camera would sort of almost whip pan and then reframe and zoom in. And it was quite unsettling. because it's not something we traditionally see. And for me, that was really beginning to happen within the school. So that was the first sign I got that, okay, there's a sort of presence, if you like, within the school.
I mean, the building was really eerie, and so was the teachers and stuff.
What essentially is happening in this school is that Tilda Swinton and a number of the staff in the school are essentially a coven of witches.
Yeah,
aren't they? And they're using, it strikes me that there's someone who needs to be sort of fed spiritually.
Yeah, they have to do sacrifices.
Yeah, so it's a sort of sacrificial, demonic, satanic, all that stuff going on, which is great. I love that stuff.
It was well done though, because it wasn't like that kind of spiritual, demonic thing that happens in most horrors where you're like, this is like every other thing where they're like, oh.
Well, having been to a performing school and a dance school, how would you feel if the way in which you were being choreographed to dance was incidentally causing demons?
That's what I said, it made stage schools look like a walk in the park, which is saying something.
What essentially was happening is they were kind of casting spells in dance classes. What happens with that first scene for the uninitiated?
Yeah, so I think it's Dakota Johnson's first like proper dance class with Tilda Swinton.
Yeah.
So like this woman kind of storms out and everything, and you're like, oh, this can't go well for her. Like I wouldn't want to shout at those women. And basically Dakota Johnson offers to do the dance instead because she'd seen it many times on TV or something. And it's really weird. Before she dances, Tilda Swinton like grabs her palms and just does this to both of them really, really hard, and then does the same to her feet. God, it's really horrible. Basically, the woman that stormed out, it was really weird, didn't you think? There's this moment where she starts crying, but they didn't look like normal tears, didn't you think? They looked like they were being dropped on her face.
Yes, I know what you mean.
It wasn't normal tears. And she goes into one of the dance rooms, which I found really eerie, that dance room.
Mirrored room.
It's a mirrored room, but you can't like tell which part's the door.
Yeah,
like you can't open it whilst you're in there.
And the door seals, and there's that terrible feeling that you can't get your fingers to be underneath it. To get out.
She goes inside this glassed room and she can't get out. So Dakota Johnson's meanwhile
upstairs. Dancing like a psycho.
So flinging her arms and legs about.
Doing it really well.
Yeah, really.
Tilda's really enjoying it.
Yeah. And basically, when Tilda prodded her hands and her feet, I think it somehow connected her hands and feet to the woman underneath.
Downstairs, yeah.
So when Dakota was doing all of this, the arms and her legs was breaking the woman's body underneath.
Oh my God.
So like when Tilda was going like this, like the woman's back would fold all the way back. So like her ribs were all mangled.
Yeah.
And she wet herself.
You'd see internal bruising come out, wouldn't you? Where a crunch would happen and you'd see the bruising under the skin.
I mean, it went on for like a good 6 minutes.
It went on for a long time.
I felt like it wasn't. I don't know if that was because it was so horrific. It felt like it was going on for longer. But I was like, oh my God.
I don't think I've ever seen anything quite so horrific.
It's a bit where she goes against the wall and her jaw goes like.
It was really unsettling, and at that point, I think about 3 or 4 people left the cinema.
Yeah, 5 people left.
Yeah. And this was at the film festival where you could kind of imagine people knew what they were paying to get into. But even I was shocked by that. And at that point I was thinking, oh my God.
Because I don't even mean just like breaking of the body, I mean total mush.
Yeah.
By the end of it, she's a ball.
Yeah.
And she's like still shaking. Oh my God, it was so awful.
I was kind of envious of the sounds they were creating. On our channel, there's The Masseuse, which is a short film I made about a guy whose limbs are broken. My sounds were good, but those sounds were pretty grim, and the bruising.
A lot was going on for her. Like
she was essentially folded like origami into a neat parcel.
I want to know how they did that. Can she actually do that with her body?
No, I mean they must. I mean her legs were around her head.
Some people can do that with their body.
But you're right. So she wet herself, which was kind of almost a sort of humiliation too far, and then stuff came out of her mouth. Anyway, it was the most horrific thing.
I thought she was great in that scene. She's good acting.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. And what was clever about it was it didn't feel CGI'd or visual effected, so that lent it a real sort of authentic grisliness.
I mean, it looked so real. Exactly. I believe this woman was being crushed.
And so the film moved on from there, and it becomes increasingly odder and odder and odder. And yet, I would say that that scene was so powerful, everything I felt personally after it never really matched it.
Yeah, that was the problem I had with it. Obviously, everything that happened was really like, what the hell, a bit traumatic and eerie. But because that first bit was quite long and it was so in your face, and because we'd already spent quite a long time without anything quite so
Yes.
scary. So it made all the other bits afterwards look like they were trying too hard to make you scared.
Yes.
But, I mean, it's still...
Yeah, it still worked. Yeah, I mean, it's an incredibly exhausting film. I'm a big fan of films that create an ever-developing sense of tension, often without necessarily having to deliver anything. I think David Lynch is the master of it, where, I mean, he does deliver really striking imagery and sort of conclusions, but I do think that it's a great skill to keep that sort of process of a coiled spring getting more and more tense across the film. And so I thought it did a very good job, despite that scene being so powerful and like a spring going badoing in every direction, to kind of start to recreate the springs.
Yeah.
I got slightly irritated with the old guy, though I kind of got what he was doing. He was sweet, but I just spent most of my time thinking, is that Tilda Swinton?
I did have a problem with how it felt like two very different stories.
Yes.
I didn't mind him particularly. If there was less of him and less of his story, it would have been okay.
And so Dakota Johnson's character sort of becomes more and more, in a weird way, victimised, but also more and more powerful, doesn't she?
Yeah.
She's sort of almost the chosen one. I thought the staff of the school were remarkably good.
Yeah. You thought like one of them was from the original, didn't you?
Yeah, I wondered if some of the cast. Yeah,
there's
a funny sort of, well, obviously German, sort of very odd, kooky. She reminded me at times a little bit of Betty or Nadia.
She had really weird delivery for lines, but it really worked.
That scene where she ran out of the school towards the old man at one point.
Oh, that was horrible.
But I thought as a coven of witches, I thought it was a brilliantly observed coven of witches. And then there was one other, do you remember what about the woman with the glasses just sitting there rocking? Who's suddenly in the middle of a sort of coffee break in the staff room decides to stab herself in the neck. I mean, there were some very arresting moments. So
and did you notice there was one of the teachers, she had like a black hair, it was a fringe and a short bob. You know, you said she was really, really good.
Yes.
She's the one that kind of looks
Oh God, she was amazing.
But the whole time she has like this purse around her neck.
Yeah.
And she keeps stroking it because there's long hair on it. It's Chloë Moretz's hair.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, because she had black hair and she goes to the doctor
pimples
at the beginning and she says they took my hair.
You see, this is where I think the film's very powerful. I think it went a bit, there's a phrase, grand guignol towards the end, where it became so sort of spectacularly, like almost like Dante's Inferno.
Yeah.
I love all that stuff, but who was the character that they kept referring to? There was a moment early on where, whilst they were doing the dancing in the hall and what have you, we saw a sort of taloned hand touch
Mother Marcus.
So the film builds and builds and builds to what I can only describe as a scene that makes Mandy look like a stroll in the park. A scene of such sacrificial weirdness.
Where they're all naked.
Where they're all naked and dancing. But then we meet Mother Marcos. Now describe Mother Marcos.
I mean, she looks like the dog's food in a massive pile and all melted and kind of stuck a few features on it. And then she has a baby hand on her arm.
She had baby hands, keeps
moving. Good gun like that. I mean, it was horrific, and she had goggles on. I mean,
we had to go out into the London nightlife.
Let go of all reality.
Could you believe that this had bettered Mandy? I mean, I didn't think you could get any more imagery that was more shocking.
No. I mean, because the trailer didn't suggest it was that.
No.
Bad. It was really weird. Like I kind of let go of the plot and what was actually
happening.
I
think the plot had let go of itself. I mean, I think the original film was very much about a sense of Suspiria, and it was more about atmosphere really rather than narrative. And this kind of embraced that fully. I thought its depiction of witchcraft and witchery was probably one of the best I've seen in a film ever, really. I mean, you know, take your hocus pocuses and all that other stuff. If you want something that's truly unsettles you this Halloween, really,
Suspiria.
Go and see Suspiria. I don't know if it's out before Halloween. I gave up on the plot. There were bits that I just kind of tolerated. The old guy did feel like another film.
He was very sweet.
It was very sweet. I was trying to strike a connection, but the brooding sense of witchcraftery in the school does build to a sort of rather ridiculously over the top crescendo is a good word. A crescendo of exploding heads and baby arms.
And their weird hook things were strange.
The weird hook things. Oh, what were
the hooked knives?
Yes, which were in the trailer, weren't they? Yeah.
And that's why they get so angry at the old man. They're like, "You made it dirty."
Yeah. Yeah.
Go away. So yeah, I think that the beginning was a bit slow. But it definitely made up for it once it got to like the really scary bits.
Yes.
Yeah, it definitely shook me a bit afterwards. I was like, oh my God. Like in a good way. I'm not traumatised for the rest of my life.
Don't tell me off, everyone.
I thought the acting was actually really, really good.
Yeah,
I wasn't too sure about Dakota Johnson's like performance.
No, I wasn't.
I thought her dancing was great. To be honest, I felt sorry for her because I felt her character wasn't very good.
Yeah.
She kind of did a lot of...
Yes.
I thought Tilda Swinton was brilliant.
Yeah.
Because she appeared as like the scariest at first, and then she became the most reasonable.
Yeah,
really
so
weird.
if Tilda Swinton's the most reasonable, it's got pretty damn scary.
Yeah,
I get you.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely images in that which I shall never forget or unsee.
You said a very funny thing when you came out of the cinema to me. I said to you, if this had to be given a certificate, what should it be?
Oh, it should be for like 30 year olds.
So it should be a 30.
It should be over 30s.
R30.
Yeah, I mean, it is crazy ridiculous. And if you can't deal with like blood or gore or just horror in general.
Or demonic, satanic, witchcraft. Really.
Any of that kind of stuff, don't go and see it.
Go.
For the scare factor and for it being a horror film, I'd say it would probably get a 10 out of 10.
Right, that's great coming from you.
Because it fully scared.
Yeah.
It did the job of a horror film.
You didn't want to go to bed, did you?
No.
No.
Only did toffee with me.
Yeah. Well, I sort of went into this slightly feeling a sort of, nostalgic. I was thinking, oh, wow, I remember this totally, it's typical me, this totally traumatised me and changed my childhood.
Let's take my daughter.
I must take my daughter to see if it has the same effect on her. No, I didn't. That wasn't my intention.
No.
As I'm sitting here now, even though it's 2.5 hours, and I am of the Hitchcockian opinion that you should make a film that lasts the duration of your bladder, I would quite like to see it again now, because I thought there was a lot going on different levels that I'd like to rewatch and respot and re-see. I had lots of issues with parts of the plot. I thought it was a bit weird, but the original was weird. It was never going to make total coherent sense. I thought its evocation of East Berlin was great. I thought it was the right setting. I thought the school building was amazing.
Yeah.
I loved the camera work. I thought the camera work is something that I don't know if any of the reviewers have paid attention to, but this agitative, not in a way that kind of suggested the camera was another being in that way that horror films often do, like Halloween, but just in that sense of unease and unsettling us as the viewer. And I thought that was very experimental in a way, and I really liked that. I thought Dakota Johnson was strangely inexpressive and blank throughout the whole thing. It's not to say she wasn't good, but
I do feel it was something with her character.
Yeah, maybe it was with her character.
Weirdly.
I thought Tilda Swinton was remarkable. You summed her up beautifully. If she's your best friend in there, you're in serious trouble.
Yeah.
I thought it lost itself in that final crescendo, but I really enjoyed the ride. I have to say, I was unsettled. It takes a lot in this day and age to cut through and really unsettle you, I think. And so for me, it was delivering lots of that David Lynchian weirdness. So I would go so far as to say, I think this has to be the film you watch this Halloween. And if you're looking or hunting for anything that you want to be really unsettled by, this is it.
Yeah.
But I would say like Nadia would loathe it, and I do think it could fundamentally scar you.
Yeah.
I do think it could. I think there are some scenes and images in there that were really, really unsettling. So it does come with a caution. Admittedly, I took my own daughter to see it, but that's
I'm fine.
I kind of respect her film watching credentials. So,
it's definitely a film I'm going to watch with friends when it's out on DVD.
Is it? Yeah. Okay, well, and on that note, I'm going to give it as a horror film, I'm going to give it a 10 out of 10.
Yeah.
For more film and family fun, don't forget to click the subscribe button and make sure to click the bell to never miss an update.